Yo, welcome back to another video here today. Today I wanted to show you how to create a 3D product render similar to this one that I did just as kind of a personal project for XIX Vodka, which is a vodka brand by the Sidemen Group. So we're going to be going over the full process from modeling, texturing, how to utilize displacements, creating a nice simple composition, going over some basic lighting, and then rendering it out. So you can get all the project files and all the assets on my Patreon. That will have the whole scene from the lighting to the textures and to the model, of course. So let's jump straight into it and get modeling. Okay, so I've got a blank Cinema 4D file here, and the first thing we want to do is drop a reference image so we can match the model perfectly to the bottle, as we want it to obviously match the thing in real life. So let's go to mode and go to view settings, middle mouse click on the viewport and go to front. And we have this kind of image area here, which we can drop our reference plane into. So let me just find that real quick. This will be in the description below as well, so you can obviously model it yourself too. Perfect. So now we have our reference image of the bottle, and we can kind of see the edges of the bottle here. This isn't the best one. It's kind of a bit too dark for what we'd usually want, but it was the most front-on one that I could find. The first thing we want to do is just center this to our y-axis, so we're modeling everything to proportion. So let's just change this here, something like that. Probably that is pretty much dead center, I think. Maybe like that. Yeah, I'm just going based off this, where this X comes together and the M. Perfect. Let's scale this down quite a lot, and we're going to need to change the offset again. So we'll just adjust that accordingly. And let's actually bring a cylinder here so we can see how big we would like to model this. I'm going to say the height of the bottle is probably going to be about 40 centimeters. Just do 40 for now, and a radius of say 6, something like that. Let's go to mode, view settings again, size, scale it down to the size of that cylinder, or roughly, and let's make it a bit bigger again. Perfect. And offset it slightly, maybe like 0.25 or 0.3. 0.35. This is the designer OCD kicking in here. Perfect. So we have our image plane to scale, and we have our primitive cylinder to scale as well. Let's now move into editing this cylinder and matching it to the product of the bottle a bit more accurately. So let's start with adjusting the radius of this cylinder to match a bit more of what the bottle is. I'm going to go with something like this. You can actually see there's maybe not on YouTube compression, but there's a tiny highlight here from one of these grooves. So maybe we would go for something like this. And then the highlight also isn't the very edge of the bottle as well, which is a little bit annoying, but hey ho. And let's make this a little bit taller. Perfect. So what I actually want to do is I want to bring this top area down to about here, so I can model this part a little bit better. So let's actually make a copy, just in case we mess up. Alt G to make a null, and then just call this archive. And Alt and double click the traffic light to make sure it's not viewable in the viewport or the render, and let it see on our cylinder. Cool. So let's add actually before we do that, we want to remove the height segments. So let's change it from 4 to 0 as we're to 1, because we are going to be adding our own loop cuts to the bottle. Okay, cool. Let's go and find where the major changes in the mesh or the model are, and we can change it accordingly. So let's go to points or vertex mode, and go to our selection type and make sure rectangle selection on. Yours is probably on brush selection. Let's go here, make sure visible is unticked so we can grab all of them, and let's move these down just below here where kind of this bevel starts to take effect on the bottle. And these are all good. Cool. So that's that. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a loop cut here, as this is another area where the bottle changes shape significantly, or in this case a little bit actually. You can kind of see the bottles in a bit further. So let's grab those and these actually and make these a bit smaller. However, we want to lock the y-axis. Something like that. Now looking at it, yep, that's perfect. And maybe move these in a bit more too. I can now see actually the image plane isn't aligned, but it's actually just the highlights are also a bit weird on either side. It doesn't matter too much because we know what we're doing and it's a pretty basic shape. Let's also go to loop cut and add one here, as we can kind of see the bottle changing shape significantly here too. Let's go back to our rectangle selection, grab these points and scale them in as well, and maybe move these down. You can also do it by going to edge mode, double clicking or clicking U and L for loop selection and going to slide, and you can slide these down. But it may not have obviously the same effect, so I'll stick with points or vertex mode if you come from Maya. Maybe something like, we'll actually keep it a bit wider because subdivision surface is going to kind of cramp these in. And yeah, let's move on to the next bit. The next thing I want to do is model this top part of the bottle that we have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to face mode. Let's turn this Y off so we don't forget about it, and grab the brush selection, or you can hit U and L as this is a loop selection. So let's just go with that and grab those faces. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit Control and drag up on the Y-axis, or what you can do is hit Extrude, but just to keep it on the keyboard, I hit Control, and let's scale those in as well. Cool. So now we have that kind of bevel or the rounding. It looks sharp at the moment, but that's of course because we don't have our subdivision surface activated. So yeah, let's continue. Next thing I want to do is kind of inset these faces here, so we can build kind of the tip of the bottle here. So let's right click, inset, and I'm going to say about this much, but we can also go to here and move it up to see kind of where we're at. That was pretty accurate, to be honest. Let's try something like that. Yeah, that's not too bad. I think that works. Looks like it seems pretty good there. And let's hit Control now so we can get this stem here too. And let's just bring it all the way to here. Cool. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to just adjust these edges here, because initially I thought that it kind of just, if we add a couple loop cuts here to make everything a little bit sharper, I thought it kind of went like this. It was pretty straight. Let's add a few more subdivisions. It's pretty straight, not much of a bevel there. Turns out it's way more of a bevel. So let's go back, and what we actually want to do is go to edges, select all of those by double clicking on one, or hit U and L on your keyboard and move them up slightly to something like this. Perfect. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add another loop cut over here where this kind of extrusion is. And I'm also going to go to rectangle selection, edges, and select these and move them up just a bit. Let's zoom out here. Go to face mode, faces, U and L to create a loop selection, and then extrude. So we get that kind of little bevel on here. It's really small, something not significant at all. Perfect. And then we want to, by looking at it, we want to, so this area is thicker than here. We want to extrude this whole thing. So U and L again, that, and then shift to get that one. And then let's just bring these up like so. Perfect. Let's go into refining this shape inside of subdivision surface. So if we go to here, click on our cylinder, hit Alt, and then get the subdivision surface. It looks a bit goofy at the moment, not exactly what we want. So the first thing we're going to do is sharpen up everything to make it look a bit more refined. So this is obviously a bit sharper over here. So what I'm going to do is add a loop cut here, and then also one here. Now we can bring these out a little bit more. So this bottom bit is a bit thicker by locking the y-axis again. And let's just move these down, maybe widen these a little bit, something like that. And let's sharpen these up as well. So let's go to here, sharpen that point up there. And just so everything's kind of even in the center here, let's click Shift. So a loop cut locks to the middle of the mesh, and click, and then come over to number of cuts and just change that to let's say 4. That should be fine. Now we've got a bit more of a refined shape here, and we can continue. Another point that I think this changes in sharpness a bit is here, something like that. And now we're kind of moving on to the next bit. So when we have our subdivision surface on our cylinder, because these are triangles, we're getting some weird artifacts. I don't know why I've just added a plane. We get these weird artifacts and not very nice shading. Also, I believe that loop cut might have been a mistake from me. So let's just go double click that, right click and click dissolve, so we can focus on these. So I want to go to faces and then hit U and L on my keyboard and just delete those. Next thing I want to do is double click on that and go to right click. Actually, let's inset these a bit. So hit Control, unlock the Y-axis, hit Control and drag to make an inset. Then you want to right click and fit close polygon hole, which is here, and then just hover over this until this kind of white comes out. Hit that, but obviously we can see we have no edges, so let's go to patch, and the orientation isn't quite right here, so let's just rotate this until it matches a bit better, and something like this is absolutely perfect. Now, I don't think the bottle is just flat at the bottom here. I just don't think it is, and even if it is, why not make it a little bit more artistic? So if I was to just go to here and pull this up, not the greatest result, doesn't look quite right. And then if we were to kind of pull these up as well, we're just going to be battling it to kind of get a good look properly. So let's just do a soft selection. Let's go back, click on the point, click on here, go to soft selection, enable, and obviously this is way too wide. Think of this as kind of a vertex weight map, but for one of the points. And let's change this to something like 5, maybe smaller, something like 3, and let's drag these up. This way it proportionally and kind of with a fall off will change the points. Something like that is okay. Cool. So we have the main shape of the bottle pretty much. Now it's time to work on this area up here. So let's click off our subdivision here, and let's just add a few more loop cuts around here. See how this looks, something like that. I think that works. And obviously we want to tighten this area up. So let's turn off our subdivision so we can get a bit of a better view. And let's put some there. It's way sharper now. And then let's actually put one here. And then we can go into point mode, zoom all the way in. Actually, my reference image is gone now because I had an issue in the last one. So I'll just bring that in a sec. Let's turn off Y. So it inserts those. Let's turn these off, bring them down. Add a loop cut here, here, and here. And now we have that top bit that we saw. Let's tighten this up a little bit too. That's actually probably way too sharp. You could probably cut your finger on that, to be honest. So that seems fine. Let's just see this. I don't know, we might not need this extra loop cut here. Just dissolve that. Yeah, we probably don't need that. It's unnecessary. That's essentially our bottle. It's not too complex. Let me just go back to the old project. I just had a bug with this one when I was filming. Let's go back to here and just put these. Go to okay, so I fixed the image plane issue that we had. So everything should be good. Let's just turn off soft selection. Okay, so the model is pretty much done. Let's just actually go to here. And this is okay, these triangles, because it's a flat surface. Usually you don't want triangle topology on a curved or non-flat surface. Just get horrible issues, but on a flat surface it's not too bad. So let's select all of these, or hit U and L, or use the brush selection, and let's just hit control like that, and then just scale them in, and then control and drag down. Just do something like this and press delete to get rid of those, and we'll put a loop cut here and here for now. Doesn't really matter. If you kind of wanted to do that top bit, I know there's a little lid up there, which we can do now actually. So let's just go to disk or cylinder even. This is way too big. Let's get this in. I'm using 1, 2, and 3 to move around, 3 to rotate around the object, 2 to zoom in and out, and 1 to pan around the object. Let's see how big this lip is here. Probably need to move some of these points up as well, to be honest. So let's just grab these. These, move that up a little bit. Cylinder, back to model. Okay, something like that is fine. Let's solo this by hitting this eye icon. Edit by clicking C, go to faces and grab these, insert all the way to about here, and then control and drag down almost like a little cork. Let's go here, 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 and here, subdivision surface. We now have like a really easy cork. This is probably actually way too sharp. Let's dissolve these. And let's do what we did before, which was let's turn off subdivision surface faces, grab those and click delete. Edges, select all of these or U and L on your keyboard, control scale them in, and right click, close polygon hole, wait for it to go white, rotate these slightly and something like that. Let's just put the subdivisions up a little bit more. Let's check the topology. Everything looks fine. Looks fine. I don't know what the inside of the bottle looks like or the cork, but somehow this will do. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Let's grab these, lock the Y, expand the let's go back to solo mode. U and L, which you can do in edges mode, and just select those and scale these out. Perfect. And go out solo mode. Perfect. So that is essentially the bottle design that they have. Let's just check everything is pretty good. Let's just move this up slightly, I think. I know it's not kind of over here even as well, but that's not a worry for us at the moment. We're just going to align it on this side because we know this cylinder is perfectly centered. So something like that. And let's check down here if we don't want any issues. We might slide these. Let's go to right click, slide these up a bit so it's a bit more of a gradual change. And why not, let's thicken the bottom a bit just to have a bit more of a effect when we render it. Cool, something like that. Looks pretty good. We've got no issues from what I can see. Checking that bottom, the bottom looks all good. And up here looks all good too. Okay, perfect. Let's move into texturing, where we're going to be utilizing the diffuse maps and the displacement maps for extra detail that we see on the bottle. So yeah, let's jump right in. So what I did to create the texture of the bottle is really simple actually, because the bottle label itself is really just some white text and a white logo. I mean, it's the same thing throughout really. There wasn't much to do. All I did was I downloaded a logo of the XIX and found a font that was similar. The font I found was Montserrat semi-bold, and I just changed the size of it a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty much all I did. I found the icon for this here. This will also be in the Patreon assets as well, but everything's movable. And I guess the main thing to point out as well is the image size. So let's go to image canvas size. And I basically picked something a bit shorter than 4K by 4096 by 4096 because I didn't want anything square. Remember, it's more tall because it's a tall cylindrical bottle, obviously, and it doesn't wrap around as much as it kind of goes up in height. And then obviously the bottle itself is centered, the label itself is centered here. So I just made sure everything was centered by hitting Control R to bring up rulers, snap that to the middle and make sure everything was centered accordingly and properly. So yeah, let's jump into kind of the explanation of the displacement maps and how we utilize them in C4D and Octane, or any renderer that you're using, maybe Redshift or something like that. Okay, so the little indents or cylinders that you can see here, or even capsules even, that are kind of balled into the bottle. Originally, I was going to model them. However, I was kind of thinking, if this was a client, and you were kind of going through different bottle designs or displacement maps, or kind of indents or embosses or debosses, and they wanted to change it up constantly or switch it out, going through kind of all that remodeling and retopologizing, or starting from scratch takes up an insane amount of time that is just not necessary. So something that is really quick and effective when being a 3D artist or working with a client is to use displacement maps to your advantage instead of modeling each part. Also, modeling these can probably be a pain in the ass, and you'll more likely run into issues. With displacement maps, it's so much easier to create, takes a fraction of the time, and quickens up the workflow for both parties. So what I did is let's just copy this into a PureRef, and show you what I did. PureRef is just kind of something you can have a bunch of images on, create a mood board or anything, and have it hover over any application while interacting with it. So let's just bring this over here, something like this. So what I did is I went and created a background, which is white here. And then I just created these really basic cylinder shapes that matches this somewhat. Now, the way I did this was I went to here, grabbed the rectangle tool, and I think I changed this to about 60. And you can create a kind of rounded rectangle here, something like that. Really quick and easy. I then went to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, convert to smart object, and you can kind of change the blur here depending on the gradient at which this debosses. So if this was to have no blur on it, it'd be a straight, pretty much like a straight cut through the bottle, and no cut like that is perfect. I wanted to add a bit of a gradient to it, a bit of smoothing, to add a bit more realism, almost like when you add a subdivision modifier, but then you go in and add the loop cuts to make it a little bit sharper, and things like that. So I just wanted to blur it a little bit, but what I did is I cloned a bunch of them. Obviously the label goes down here, so I didn't want to have any kind of interrupting this area because that wouldn't look right. And I believe there's more complex ones on the back, but we're not going to be rendering the back today. But I think the back of the bottle just has some of these just a little bit shorter. But I kind of cloned all of these 8 times, 4 on each side, put them in a group, convert to smart object. That way I can jump into here and edit them. Kind of, if I wanted one here, the client said, okay, let's try moving one of these cylinders over to here. You just click save on your opened smart object. It'll open as a PSB instead of a PSD. And let's go back to displacement and see here it's updated with the blur. And that happens with anything that you filter or use the filter on that is a smart object. Or we can double click on this, go to color overlay. We just turn these off, or I believe these were all white originally. Go here and change that. They've all updated now. So let's just go back a couple steps, save displacement. So yeah, this is our displacement map. Because these kind of indents are going in and not out, we are basically creating inverted displacement map. Usually it would be that it's like this, something like that. But then that would kind of push these out, which is not what we want. So I went with something like this instead. You just want to then save both the diffuse and the displacement map as PSDs, and then we can access them in an image texture in the node tree when we start creating the textures / shaders. So we're back in Cinema now, and I've just renamed all of these, or these two, to top / cork and main bottle. Let's go to Octane live viewer window and dock this over here. and open up your material manager so we can see what materials we have just by clicking on this shader ball right here. Let's go to materials, create glossy, click over here to refresh it, and we'll just name this main underscore bottle underscore texture, and click node editor. Now we can start bringing in our texture maps. So let's go to where we saved them, which was here. And let's bring our diffuse map just by dragging our PSD into here, and our displacement map, which is all white for some reason. So let's just save this again. And go back to cinema, reload. There we go, now they've appeared. Don't know what that was about. Maybe I just didn't save it when we were altering them. Let's go to image texture, plug that into the diffuse, and get displacement node, image, plug that into image texture, change the level of detail from 256 by 256 to 4K. And I believe what I used was 1. And then I believe I used a mid-level of 1 as well because it's going in. So yeah, let's then close this and close this. And now I'm just going to make a selection where the material should go. So let's go to here, faces U and L, and click shift for where we want the material to be applied to. Let's just bring this up here. Doesn't quite go down to where it curves. So let's bring this down a little bit maybe, and slide this. You can also UV unwrap this, but there's not much to UV unwrap here, so that's why I'm not. And then we can drag our material to the selection and applied it to there. We can already see it here. Then let's duplicate this, and let's do another Photoshop file here, and then just add a black box over here, over like that. Let's resave this and call it diffuse main bottle. Okay. We can, just because we want the blacks to match as well, we can change this to main to bottle like that, and delete these and drag the new one in, diffuse like that, and good update. So I click node editor again and apply that here, but not in front of it because that would overrule it. Let's just put it behind. And perfect. So we want this to the front. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to click on this texture and click on texture mode, and change it from UV mapping to cylindrical. This is way too big right now. So what we need to do is scale this in, but we have y-axis locked. So we can see our texture on the other side here as well, and bring this down. I think I stretched it a bit too much, so let's grab the Y and rotate it around. Holding shift, it will do it in 5-degree increments, like that. Perfect. Let's move on to, it's actually a bit too much. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Let's move on to rendering this in Octane and setting up a really nice, simple composition. We can also apply this bottle texture to the cork top as well, because it's the same. And let's just open and start our rendered view. So let's see what we have here. So we can see that the texture is slightly too big. or indents way too much. So let's go back to node editor and change the displacement height to maybe 0.1. There we go. That is considerably better. Maybe even too much as well. Let's try 0.7. Yeah, and this is just kind of cropping at the top because of our selection. So I'm just going to go to transform node, and slightly bring it down, something like that. And you can see our blur that we did in Photoshop taking effect here. See how it very slightly dips into it a little bit more, and we're actually seeing some cutting off here as well. So let's go back to main bottle, node editor, and plug both of these in. And let's clamp a bit on the y-axis. This is also a bit stretched compared to what we actually want. And let's move this up again. Let's move out a little bit more. Something like this is pretty good. Let's bump it up on the y-axis a little bit more. Not that much. Nine. Something like that is pretty good. It's just tweaking this and making it match. You know, we don't want any stretching as well. So yeah, perfect. That is the texture done, and we have added model details really easily, and can change super quickly if the client wants to change it or you want to change it, whatever. Just makes it super quick and easy without having to model a bunch of different things. Okay, so let's set up our scene and our cameras and get started with setting up a little composition and some basic studio lighting. So the first thing I want to do is change the resolution of this project. Let's change it with a width of 2000 by 3000. Let's just center up a little bit here. Go to objects, Octane camera, dive into that and change this to 90 and 0. Just zero everything out apart from the x-axis. Let's go to Octane camera, objects, classic, change it to telephoto, something like this. Let's just straighten up our bottle. I don't know why my axis is so messed up. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be rotating these. Anyway, just to fix that, we can go and click this button up here and it just straightens everything out again. So what I want to do is just rotate this in a way that I did for the render on the tutorial thumbnail. And let's just duplicate this as well. Move this behind and create another one. Move it to somewhere like that. Let's grab both of them, center them up. Let's just check these aren't touching. Definitely not. Perfect. So we've got our poster aspect ratio and we have our camera set up. Let's just keep all nice and tidy here. Alt-G, and let's just change these to bottles. Perfect. So we've got our small composition set up. Let's go to objects, HDRI environment. Now we want to add our lights, but we don't want to change the view of the camera just by going out of this camera bit here. It'll update the render in a way that we don't want it to. So we basically want to tell the renderer to not update where we're moving our camera or panning around the scene. So I'm just going to go to options, update check, and turn camera off. Now I can dive out of this and the camera position will stay in the last one before we click that options update camera check. Now I can go to objects, lights, area light, grab one of these, move them to the side, see how our cameras stayed in that original position. So yeah. Okay, so let's sharpen this up a bit. Let's go to light, Shift C and type target, and grab this one. That will just apply it to our light object and put the bottles in the target object. That means we can move the light wherever we want and it will lock on. So I'm gonna put one somewhere here. And let's just go to, let's click on this tag, visibility and camera visibility. We don't really need to see it or want to see it really. Let's shorten this a bit. We want to keep the height so it covers the bottle. Let's move this back a little bit. I want to kind of show off this logo here a bit, as well as revealing these shapes over here. And let's go to our light tag, light settings, distribution, click on that, and gradient, make some more kind of realistic gradients here. Let's move the white into the middle, and let's bring another black over here by hitting Control and clicking on it. And that we have a little bit of a fall off here, which is a bit more realistic. Cool. So I mean, for a reveal poster, this could be perfect. I mean, you reveal a bit of the logo, some of the bottle shape, it's quite ominous and eerie. But we want to do kind of more of a presentation, I guess. So the next thing I want to do is go to primitive shapes and grab a plane. This looks super goofy right now because the camera's on the exact same position as the plane. And let's bring these down to somewhere like, we can actually go to the side view and line these up perfectly. Cool, and bring this to the front of them like that. Materials, create diffuse material and put this all the way to 0 like that. And let's just duplicate this. This is a bit of a look dev that you can do. I don't know why that's not snapping to 5-degree increments. Move this back and change this. That's fine actually. Let's grab another light, object light, area light, move it to face the plane. Let's duplicate this material, diffuse, because this is black, it won't even reflect light really. So we'll just go change this to like 10 and visibility, check camera visibility off. And let's move this to the back. This plane should have more light on it. Oh, it's because I didn't apply it. Rookie mistake. Let's go back to the color and change that back to like 5, maybe even lower, like 3. This light is way too big. Scale this all the way down. That I was changing the plane. Of course, another rookie mistake. Let's scale this in and increase this to 500, something like that. We're just creating a bit of a showcase here. Maybe something like that. It's quite cool. Move this up, maybe make it a bit thinner. I might even go to details, rectangle, and change it to a disc. So it matches a little bit better. Let's go change this to, and then you can edit the temperature as well. If you want a bit more of a warmer look, that's actually really quite nice. But for vodka and lick, something like this, I'll probably go for a cooler look. I think maybe even like that. Obviously you can change the color a bit by going to texture, color, and then there. So let's add a little bit, not too much. Something like that. And also what I want to do is I don't want these lights to be affecting the, let's just see also what, oh, I want that. I don't want these lights that we're just having on the bottles to be affecting the plane's lighting at all. So what I'm going to do, and this is a really nice trick that you guys can do, if you don't want certain lights to react or emit light onto certain objects, you can go to here onto the light tag and change the light pass ID from 1 to anything. I typically just do 2 if there's only a variation of 2. And then I go to the ones that I don't want it to be the light to affect. Grab these, add a Octane object tag, add those, go to object layer, use light pass mark, go to disable, enable, and tick off 2. But I've done it for that one. So let's click that one on 1. So I do want that one to affect that. And I want this one to be 2. So now this light won't have any effect on here, and neither will the other ones. And now we can go about placing these other lights around the scene. We can add one on top as well. I don't really like that reflection at the moment. So I mean, I think that's a good starting base, and then you can kind of move in and use some HDRIs. This is quite nice. I like that fall off on the logo, which is really quite nice. And we've got some nice details from here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Grayscale Gorilla HDRIs. So I'm just going to go to and hit Shift C and HDRI link plus. Go to here, image texture, grab the file and drag it onto there. And now we've got a HDRI in there. And let's load up the HDRI browser. Wait for that and go to HDRIs, and I'm going to use my favorite ones, see what that's like. This one's pretty cool, but I need to whack up the intensity to like 7, maybe even like 9 to match the highlights. Maybe these are a little bit too bright as well. So let's change these to maybe like 70, 50, and increase these to like 10. Get some variation. Something like that could be cool. I'm just going to bring up the original as well. Let's go here. Okay, so let's just get rid of the plane for now. So we can match the one that I did, and let's change the brightness down to say 600. Put the material down to 0. See what that's like. Yeah, that's just nothing. 1. Yeah, something like that. Maybe make this a little bit smaller. This is just looked at the moment. Let's change this to about 800. Let's increase the power of this to 13. Something like that. Let's go into our camera tag. Let's go to post-processing, enable bloom power. Let's change that to 5. You won't see any updates because we did options, update check, and turn camera off. So let's turn that back on. Let's go to enable camera imager. Let's use ACE's tone mapping, which is like a more realistic and a more wide range color space, which is what I use for all my projects now. I usually whack up the exposure a little bit more to something like 1.5, maybe 1.3, and turn on the highlight compression all the way. Perfect. So I mean, we essentially have a exact same result that we had at the beginning of the video, maybe even a little bit better. You can kind kind of experiment with a bunch of different lighting setups or camera angles. Maybe if we go even closer, we can lock on to here. Change the exposure to like 1, thin lens, depth of field, aperture. Got another angle here, which is pretty cool. Or you could maybe get one of the bottle up here and change the focus point, maybe something like that. I want to do a bit more of a reveal, change the aperture, something a bit lower, something like that maybe. Pretty cool. And then obviously you can add all your details and surface imperfections and whatnot to your material to obviously make it a bit more realistic. In my final one, I added some scratches and some fingerprints, a bit more of a bump map, and things like that, just to make it look a bit more realistic. It's all in the details. I like to say when it comes down to 3D, you may not see them in the first place, but once you start stacking on a bit more, it'll all start coming together and making it a bit more realistic and interesting. But that's it for the video. We went over modeling the bottle from scratch, to texturing, Photoshop, our displacement maps and our diffuse maps, setting up a simple poster composition, and finally lighting and rendering inside Octane. Hope you guys enjoyed. There will be everything that we worked on in this video on my Patreon. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.